Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are bringing to you a very special interview. I'm really excited about this one. We've been looking forward to it. Today we're welcoming to the channel Paul Hopper. Paul Hopper is one of the most renowned biotechnology entrepreneurs, leaders across the space, not only in Australia, but around the world. He's been involved in a range of different capacities, from founder to chairman to executive director on many companies. It's going to be a fascinating, broad-reaching conversation. We'll unpack the biotechnology space. We'll talk about the companies he's currently involved in. We'll talk about the future of the space as well. I know this is an area that so many of you have been interested in learning more about. So today we're very blessed to have this opportunity to learn firsthand. Paul, welcome to the channel.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Maybe for a bit of a starter, it would be great to just hear a little bit about your background. Obviously, you've been involved in biotechnology for nearly 2 decades now, and how that journey's really evolved over this past period.
Yes, look, thank you for your kind comments there. I got involved in the sector around about 2000 when I'd been in the private hospital sector here in Australia, and the company was taken over. And I went to the US and I met a couple of scientists who were working in the cancer space and research scientists. And I was struck by how incredibly inventive and enthusiastic and passionate they were. It was like a light switch. And that was the point at which I decided to get into the biotech industry. And shortly afterwards, I moved to the US and I lived there for 11 years. And whilst I was there, I got involved in a lot of biotech companies, and I got to know most of the major medical institutions in the US and some in the UK and Europe, and learnt that they were often looking for entrepreneurs or people to license their technologies that they'd brought to a certain stage, and then they don't want to do any more work on it. And so I was very lucky over the number of years to pick up quite a few promising assets, which are now in a number of companies here in Australia.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and there's so many highlights to discuss, but I'd love to just start with one. Virallytics, from $4 million to an eventual sale to Merck for $500 million. We'd love to just hear your thoughts and reflections on that, and maybe use that to frame the progression of how biotechnology companies can come to market.
Yes, look, from an Australian perspective, the Virallytics deal was a very interesting one, simply because it was a relatively large deal. And it was one of the few deals where Big Pharma acquired a homegrown asset. And that asset had been developed by Darren Shafran, a professor at Newcastle. So he was the visionary that came up with the idea, and it went into Virallytics, the company, and we went from there. So I was actually living in the States, and in the early days, the company of Virallytics, I think it was actually a $3 million market cap, and it was in pretty bad shape. We didn't have very much data on the drug. And one of the major shareholders rang me and said, "Paul, can you help us out?" So I went on the board, and then slowly we developed the drug, and it did what we thought it did, what Darren thought it would do. That is, it actually performed. We raised money, we got interest, and then Merck bought us out in, I think, 2019 or 18 for, as you say, about $502 million. So that was a big deal for the Australian sector.
It is quite a broad banner. It's an area that continues to develop. There's so many new facets continuing to grow. But biotechnology, what is it? Are you able to demystify the space for us, please?
Look, it's a very broad umbrella, biotechnology, because it covers therapeutic drugs. I mean, it sort of falls under the broader umbrella of life sciences, but biotech, it covers therapeutic drugs, all classes, whether it's, cancers or central nervous system. It covers devices, I guess, diagnostics, and it's basically, from a commercial aspect, it's the goal of biotech companies to take drugs, often preclinical, that is early stage, and run them through the development process, because the way you get drugs approved, it's sort of linear. You do preclinical work, and then you do a phase 1 to test for safety, and then you do a phase 2 to see if you're getting any signals, and then you get a phase 3 to prove it. And then you go to the FDA or whoever and say, "Here's the data, it's worked, could we have your blessing?" And they stamp it. That's a very simplistic view, but basically biotechnology is from a commercial sense, is taking potential drugs, devices or diagnostics and trying to turn them into approved products that can be used in humans or for humans or on humans. It's a fairly crude explanation, but it'll give you a feel.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And there's something that's interesting about the biotech space as well is, as you've mentioned here, many of those perfect or ideal buy points are after those phase 2 trials. For those early stage biotech companies, it's not taking it all the way through to commercialization. Can you speak about why that is and why the focus is ultimately on those big pharma transactions for many companies?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's fair to say, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but most people that I'm associated with in other companies, the goal is to get the drug into a phase 2 clinical trial. And if the drug shows efficacy, that is, it shows that it's working, it's doing what you want it to do in the patient, then you take it and you shop it to big pharma. Because running a phase 3 clinical trial, which is the confirmation trial, that requires large patient numbers, it requires hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's generally beyond the capability of most small biotechs. And then if you did get it approved, do you want to become a marketing company and hire 100 foot soldiers in America to go around to hospitals and doctors and sell the product? No. Big pharma's set up for that. So, if you take a Virallytics, the question was, do we sell out for 502 million now, or do we take the risk and run the drug right through to the end of phase 2? And yes, the data looks interesting, but we are by no means guaranteed that it will work. And then you have to make that commercial decision, which the board decided was to take the money and let Merck run with it.
Would love to hear your thoughts of the progression that you've seen in the biotech sector and the state of the current space at the moment now.
Yeah, so look, we're going through this COVID pandemic globally. I would say that the life science sector basically pushed that to the side. Valuations are at all-time high. The money being raised is enormous. IPOs are active. Mergers and acquisitions are taking place. So I would say that the condition of the sector is extremely robust. And I don't know how much of that is attributable to the COVID, because I think COVID has given people an understanding of how important science is to an economy. I mean, without these vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer and AstraZeneca, the world would be in a shocking place. So I think that's highlighted how transformational discoveries in life science can be to humankind.
It's an interesting time, and so many of the discussions that we're all having on the day-to-day basis now are surrounding these life science space and just considering, how the vaccine's going, how the rollout's going. It must have been an incredible adoption of these types of discussions from yourself personally after being involved in it for so long.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is honestly the best industry to be in. You work with the brightest people on earth who are peering into the greatest problems in human health, cancer. They're just geniuses. So it's a thrilling industry. And imagine if you get one approved, it absolutely is transformational.
I think you've touched on it there. And so often we hear about the team and, the people working on these things. But I'd love to know, obviously, you wear many hats from chairman to director to founder, investor. What are some of those key advantages that you're looking for in teams or projects when considering biotechs?
Right. So in my opinion, the most important thing after the technology, because obviously the technology is the guts of what you're trying to do, whether you want to take it on and raise money. But after that, the most important thing is the team. The team is absolutely critical, because a good team can progress a bad drug, believe it or not. So your team is extremely important. And I've been very lucky that I've surrounded myself, or I've managed to attract top class talent. So, and that also has an impact on the inventor, because from their point of view, their technology is their baby. It's often their life's work. So they want to be sure that it's going to a safe set of hands, and not just somebody who's going to look after it and just do nothing with it. They want someone that's going to develop it and make it get into, if it's not already in a clinical trial, they want to be sure that the people that are taking it, that is my team, have got the skill set to get it into the clinic. So that's very important. So your team is critical. A bad drug can go nowhere with a bad team. A good drug can get nowhere with a bad team.
It's really interesting to hear of those reflections. And that really does draw, when you look at all of the different companies that you've been involved with, you can see that really strong team coming through. I'd love to just talk about some of those companies you're currently involved in now. Chimeric Therapeutics, you've got a really strong team. You've been looking into the cell therapies more and more. Did you want to talk about the opportunity you see there on the CAR Ts and how everything's developing?
Yeah, so CAR T, or chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy, is one of the hottest areas. So today there's 5 CAR Ts that are approved, but they only work in blood cancers, that is liquid cancers. They don't work in hard cancers or solid tumors. I saw it as a very, very interesting area, and I was able to get a drug from the City of Hope Cancer Center in California, where I have very close relationships, and they had a phase 1 ready CAR T for brain cancer, which is a deadly cancer, and I was able to license it. But I had no cell therapy. CAR Ts fall under the umbrella of cell therapy. They call it cell therapy. I had no expertise in that, and so and CAR Ts are incredibly complicated. If you do not have the team who's been in there and done it before, then you're handicapping your business, your development of your drug. So I decided to find the best people I could, and I wound up hiring Jennifer Chow, who was a very senior leader at Kite. Kite's probably the most famous CAR T company in the world. I got her on board. She was not looking for a job. I recruited her cold. Then there was a company called Legend Biotech, which was the biggest biotech IPO on NASDAQ last year. I got in touch with their chief medical officer. I recruited him. And so today, Chimeric has got a team. The 4 senior executives have worked on 25 cell therapy drugs and have been involved with the approval of 4 out of the 5. There is no team like that in Australia. These guys are world class. And it means when they ring up a big institution or one of the major big pharma companies, the door opens because they're recognised and have a track record.
It's an incredibly compelling story, and it's started to draw a lot of comparisons to Imugene as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Building on the cell therapy side too, we'd love to just hear your thoughts on Suda Pharmaceuticals. At the moment, there's been a bit of a transformative process. Recently got the license for the INC-T cell therapy. Did you want to talk about what's going on over that side?
Yeah, certainly. So I've been the chairman of that company for about a bit over 2 years now. And the company's been looking for an adjunct or an additional asset to bring into the company to give it another arm, so to speak. I was very fortunate. This goes back to team again, management. I was very fortunate to meet Dr. Michael Baker, who's the current CEO. Very bright guy. He's got a very good blend of, he's got a doctorate in science, and he also has an MBA, and he'd come out of a VC firm in Melbourne. So that really nice mixture of science and business. And he came in as CEO, and he's done a fantastic job. He's been out looking for assets for the last year or so, and after doing due diligence on many of them, it culminated in this very, very promising technology from Imperial College in London. Imperial being, a powerhouse of innovation in the medical sciences in London. So I think the prospects are pretty good. It's the science is good. The inventor is very prominent in the field, and I think in Michael's hands, it's going to do very well.
Those 2 alone would be enough to keep most people busy. But today, hot off the press, a new company coming to IPO. Would love to just hear your thoughts on that and how everything's played out.
Yeah, sure. So today I launched a new company called Radiopharm Theranostics Limited, which is doing a capital raising this morning through Bell Potter and Baker Young. And the plan after that is to take it public on the ASX in October, November. So what happened was, when I was living in America, so the radiopharmaceuticals are basically drugs that are used for either imaging a cancer, they light the cancer up like a torch so you can see it, or using radioisotopes to basically blow up cells. So there's 2 arms. One is called the imaging diagnostic, and the other is the therapeutic. So I was aware of the sector when I lived in the US, but to be honest, it was in the doldrums a bit. Now the imaging side, where you get scans of patients, has been going forever and is an incredibly powerful tool, PET imaging and all the rest of it. The therapeutic side was probably the part that was a bit in the doldrums, but in 2017 or 2018, there were two big asset acquisitions by Novartis. One was for advanced accelerator for, I think, 3.9 billion, and one was also by Novartis later that year for Endocyte for 2.1 billion. And that really sparked my attention. And I thought, I'm going to have a look at the sector. So I did due diligence on the sector over the course of 2018 and 19. And by the end of last year, I decided to put this company together called Radiopharm Theranostics. So, and we launched it today. It's an incredible company. It's got 4 technology platforms. So it's got great risk diversification. We've treated, I think, nearly 130 patients in clinical trials. It's got 3 phase 2 clinical trials and 5 phase 1 clinical trials. So in terms of a portfolio for a biotech company, it has got a very rich bunch of assets in clinical trials. So the assets come out of Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York, which is a household name over there. The Technical University of Munich, which is not that well known, but very well known for nuclear medicine. And then also from Imperial College in London as well. So fantastic assets. The team, I'll give you an example. My Chief Medical Officer, Professor David Mosley, up until the 30th of June, so only a month ago, was Professor of Nuclear Medicine at Cornell University in New York, one of the great universities in America. And I can tell you, fortunately for me, 6 months ago, he took a cold call from me one Sunday night at his home, and so began a business relationship where he quit Cornell and has come to work for Radiopharm. And he wasn't on the job market, I can tell you. The CEO that I have recruited to run the company is world class. I can't tell you who he is today because he's in the process of serving his time. No, time is the wrong word. So he's in his resignation period with his company, but that is one of the big radiopharmaceutical companies. So I pulled out one of their most senior executives. He wasn't looking for a job. So I've got a pretty powerful team. So we're very excited.
Congratulations on this stage of the launch, and we'll definitely be continuing to watch this in the lead up towards the IPO at the back end of this year then. And then we'd love to hear, of course, Imugene recently. It's had really a phenomenal start to this year with the Oncolytics licensing, the capital raise recently. We'd love to just give you that platform to talk about the background and everything that's going on with the ASX IMU story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Imugene in 2013-14 with one drug out of a European university. In 2015, I was introduced to Leslie and immediately hired her as the CEO. And then in 2018, we acquired another asset from the University of Ohio. And then in 2019, I think, as I mentioned earlier on, I had this oncolytic virus, which I'd acquired on the back of the success of Virallytics. And Leslie heard about it and said, "Hey, Paul, don't do anything with that. We want it in Imugene." And I said, fine. So that was acquired. And then about 6 weeks ago, we acquired another oncolytic virus from City of Hope, which is the OnCar, and I'll tell you about that. But last week we did a raise. We went out for 75 million. We got massive response for the capital raising, had to up the book to 90. And so we're thrilled with that, and the company's fully funded. The OnCar Calytics program that we licensed 6 weeks ago is quite extraordinary. I mentioned to you earlier on that the CAR Ts, the 5 CAR Ts that are approved today, attack blood cancer. So let me explain how it works. A CAR T is your own T cell that I'm going to put, if there's any scientists listening, I'll ask them to excuse the simple explanation. But a CAR T, they take your T cell, your blood, and they reprogram the software in the T cell so that if you think about it like a missile, so that the pointy end of the missile has only one target on its mind. And if you think of a bullseye, a round bullseye with the center target is what the head of the missile looks for. So the T cell in blood cancers looks for this little target on the blood cancer cells called CD19. They're like a flag. and they stick out on the cancer cell, the blood cancer cell. And when you give a CAR T, what they call CD19 CAR T, there's only 5 of them, to a patient, it immediately sees the little flag and it attacks it. And that's why you get those brilliant results. If you give a CD19 CAR, a blood cancer CAR T, to a cancer patient that doesn't have those flags, the missile wanders around and has nowhere to go because it won't attach itself. What happened with City of Hope and the OnCAR T is that we worked out to be able to make a virus grow little flags, CD19 flags. And if you give the virus to, I don't know, breast cancer or colon cancer or pancreatic, those cancers grow CD19 flags. So when you give them a blood cancer CAR T, they say, oh, the CAR T doesn't know it's not a blood cancer. It just sees the flag, which says, hello, I'm here. And so then it goes in. It is incredible technology. So we're very excited.
I have heard it be described, if successful, as potentially the holy grail of cancer treatment. I'd love for you just to elaborate on the potential opportunity and the lives that could be impacted around the world if successful with this.
Well, at the moment, CAR Ts, the approved CAR Ts only work for those people who've got liquid cancers. All the other cancers, and they only represent, I think, 10 or 12% of the cancers. So 85% of the cancers at the moment are not receptive to CD19 CAR T therapy. So theoretically, well, not theoretically, if we are able to turn solid tumours positive with CD19 markers or flags, that's an enormous market, enormous. So it would be, revolutionary.
It is absolutely incredible, and it's something that everybody will be watching because, of course, it's such an important space and will have the ability to impact lives if successful. It's been fascinating hearing about the companies you're involved with. Obviously, there's so many different things in the pipeline. Would love to phrase the question of, firstly, what should investors be looking for each of the individual companies, but then also maybe using those as some insights into some of the key growth drivers that investors should look for when looking at biotech companies more broadly.
Right. Well, I obviously can't promote my own companies. I think people have to make their own decisions about whether they think they merit investment by them. But, you have to preface it all by saying that biotech is a risky business. And if you're investing in a company that has one product and it doesn't work, it's pretty binary. So what do I look for? I look for, if you were to ask me a checklist off the top of my head, I look for the provenance. I like to know where it came from. I'm not big on IP, on assets or technologies that have been around forever and never found a home. So I like something which is fresh and novel. Obviously, the intellectual property is essential because we don't own anything really in biotech. We own the intellectual property. So your IP, your patent portfolio has to be solid. I like, there obviously has to be a market for it. I'm not big on tiny little obscure cancers or conditions because it's hard to convince investors. I like to be able to ensure that the inventors stay close to the company, so they join the SAB, hopefully have a little bit of equity in as well, so they benefit from the upside if the company does well. So I guess it's, I like novel areas like oncolytic viruses, cellular therapies like CAR Ts. So I guess there's some of the things I look for. And then, of course, you must have a good team because without the team, it ain't going anywhere.
I just wanted to finish on a final question. It's evident that you have such a passion for the space and you've continued to grow, to develop and to see how you can make this difference. I would just love to know what drives you. Why is this such an important cause to you? And what are you really looking forward to moving forward?
Well, I get asked that a lot because I've obviously got a pretty full slate. Well, first of all, I don't see it as work. It's a bit of a passion. I love it. I think I mentioned to you about working with the brightest people, but I've told this story. Lots of people have heard it before. But when before COVID, I'd go away and come back from a trip, and my wife would say, "Tell me about the geniuses you met this time." And literally, I mean, many of the people that I've got technology from, we've become friends. And these people are they're not earning huge amounts of money, so it's not the financial thing that's driving them. They want to see their drugs get approved. So I don't see it as work. I really enjoy it. And in the process of being offered stuff all the time, you get to meet people and you learn something else. So your mind is never idle. You've always got something going on. So I see it as fun. It's not work. So that's what keeps me going. And as I said earlier on, I mean, out of all my companies, imagine if you got one of these drugs approved. I mean, it's amazing.
Paul Hopper, it was an absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you. I personally learned a lot. I really appreciate your time, and we'll continue to watch each of your companies as they move forward. Thank you so much for joining us on the channel.
Thank you. I appreciate your interest.
I really enjoyed that conversation, and I hope that you all enjoyed it just as much as I did. A huge thank you to Paul for joining us on the channel. It was really fascinating to learn more about the biotech space more broadly. We'd love to know your thoughts as well, so drop in a comment below what you think about the biotech sector, whether you've looked into any of the companies discussed, like Imugene, Chimeric, or Suda Pharmaceuticals. It's a fascinating space. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share it out. This past period, we've interviewed a range of different ASX listed CEOs, so we'll leave links to those up above that you can check out after this one. We're the ASX Investor channel. We make daily videos talking about the stock market, investing, and we find and analyze the best growth stocks. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you've got your bell notifications turned on as well, so you won't miss a daily episode, and we'd love to have you join the community. Once again, thank you to Paul for joining us on the channel. We'll continue to watch the companies mentioned, as well as the biotech space more broadly. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the video. For now, stay well and happy investing.